Hi, it's Anna Mason, and in this watercolour tip video I wanted to show you how I went about painting the pretty blue and white Chinese bowl which contains these gorgeous peony blooms. I worked from a photograph of the bowl, and the challenge was to paint the bowl to appear curved by slightly darkening the sides of the white part of the bowl without causing the blue patterns on the bowl to bleed into that light colour paint. I began, as always, with a really detailed outline drawing that's pretty pale. I outlined all of the pattern on the bowl as well as its outer edges and the ridges around the top and bottom. First, I used my larger brush to paint a really watery pale grey wash all over the bowl, except for a slightly lighter strip along the centre of the bowl which I thought seemed as light as the paper colour. I worked with a wash technique to make sure that I didn't get any hard line edges where my paint overlapped. Once that layer had dried, I used a slightly darker mix to apply the shadow area around the bowl. Next, I used my smaller brush to work with a watery pale French ultramarine blue to block in all the areas that were blue within the pattern on the bowl. Because the first grey wash on the bowl was totally dry, there was no risk of this blue bleeding into the grey. Because the way that we perceive tone is relative, it was too difficult to judge just how much darker to take the white of the bowl until I'd worked on the peonies some more and really darkened them up, and then could compare the bowl to the peonies on the paper. So I worked on the peonies some more next. Then I went back to my larger brush and used another pale grey mix to apply a second layer where I felt needed darkening a little. Because the blue paint was totally dry now, I could gently apply this grey mix over some of the blue areas without disturbing it and making it bleed. I then added a slightly darker mix to the strip along the bottom before darkening up the shadow around the bowl again, and then going on to add a gold coloured stripe at the very bottom of the bowl. Making sure that the white part of the bowl was totally dry, I next applied a thick mix of French ultramarine and Payne's grey to a few of the darkest tone areas within the blue pattern. This gave me a visual anchor on the page for the darkest end of the pattern's tonal range, which made it easier to then see how dark to take the midtones. Then I used a milky consistency mix of French ultramarine to begin work on the bird and then the leaves, working within my pencil lines and making sure to dilute the mix towards the edges of the bowl where the colour of the pattern gets lighter. Once that was done, I used a darker mix again and my tiniest brush to apply an outline edge to the shapes in the pattern, including the lines down the side of the bird and in the bird's eye. With those dark tones in place, I then adjusted my midtones a little with another layer of some milky consistency French ultramarine in a few areas. Once that was dry, I continued to use a small brush but went back to the watery grey mixture to subtly darken a few more areas of the white of the bowl, mostly towards the edges of each side to give it more of a curved look. Because I was working so watery with my mix, unwanted hard line edges weren't really an issue. And I was really careful not to work into the blue paint in case it bled. With that dry, I applied a watery mix of some pink paint just under the petals on the rim of the bowl to create some reflection. Finally, I made a few more tonal adjustments to the peonies themselves, and I was finished. I hope you've enjoyed this tip video and will have a go at painting a pretty Chinese bowl like this for yourself. A step-by-step tutorial of this whole painting is available now in my online school. If you've enjoyed this tip video, please visit animationart.com where you can sign up for a free step-by-step tutorial, check out the equipment I recommend, view more tip videos, get inspired by my portfolio and lots more. Thanks for watching.